Now before we begin part 2, let's just show you what you're watching this whole series for. Cars. Man, those shots really motivate you. Well, they motivate me, and I've already got the car. That's something that you use to your advantage, is emotional motivation, because you'll get a lot more done than just thinking about it. So this video is part 2 to my how to buy your dream car. If you want to look at part 1, if you've seen this one first for whatever reason, I'll have that link in the description below. I'm a YouTuber now. But this one's all about getting your mind ready for business, because I stepped into the business world completely naive, and there are some advantages to that. But the things I'm going to talk about are things that I learned that don't ruin who you are while being disciplined in kicking ass in business. So the 3 major areas are handling handling mimes, that's kind of creepy. Handling time, money, and your attitude. And these are basic things that work both in business and in life. But if you're going into some sort of managerial spot or entrepreneurial spot, or even being the best in your engineering field, these things will really help you save you time. And that's actually lead in perfect to the first major issue into being successful in business, is managing your time. And I'm not talking about some stupid 1-minute managers and recite incantations in 15 minutes before. No, what I'm saying is the only way to become a legend is to do more than the average person can do in a day. And you're probably saying, well, Rob, I don't have enough motivation to do. No, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about your vision outdoing just your time. And you're like, that's the stupidest thing you've said, because that's the best way I could word it. Perfect example. This video right now, you're watching me. I can see you. I'm looking right at you, and you are looking right at me, but it's not being played real time. My first video has already in 1 week had 6,000 views. 6,000 views, and I'm sure half of them turned it off halfway in the video. But to play that video, or for me to walk to your house and tell you those 18 minutes of things consecutively to every person that watched it, would take me 3 months 24/7 to do that. After about the first 2 or 3 times, don't you think my emotions, don't you think my enthusiasm like this would drop? This video allows me to be almost immortal, that a legend, that you get to watch this, and I've done it once. I spent a lot of time editing it, but then it replays. It's an investment of my time. So that's the first lesson, is in reinvesting your time. That do things that kind of succeed for the future. That if you're gonna artwork and those sort of things are really easy, but like in business, it's important to do things that you can do once and reap the benefit again and again. And I do mean money, and I do mean more time. For example, employees, you don't understand what a unfair advantage an owner has over an employee. And I'm not talking about asshole bosses. I'm talking about the fact that somebody is willing to give you their time for stupid monetary value, stupid arbitrary pieces of paper, that their time, the one thing that is a currency that you really can't trade, they do. They trade that for pieces of green paper that were printed up in Philadelphia or somewhere. That is such a cheat to life, is that when you have people working on accomplishing your vision, you're not exploiting them, but they are giving you something so much more in return than you give them. And I'm pay those people well. Keep good employees. Keep good people underneath you. If you work for a Fortune 500 company and you're the CEO, you don't own that company, but everybody underneath you is an employee of sorts. Even if you work at McDonald's and you're a manager, all of those people are working as part of your goal, that you're hitting those numbers, you're doing all those things, and that makes you more than just a person. And I really, really mean that, because in an entrepreneurial sense, they can share your vision with you not even being there. And they can almost do a better job. Some employees, and I will tell you this from personal experience, some, if not most of the people out there can be smarter than you at the things that they do. I'm a pretty damn good computer repair guy, but I have got some kick-ass employees who can walk circles around me and who can treat customers better. All for $1, all for cash. And they're happy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about don't ever rip anybody off, because that's karma. And I don't believe in karma, but that is karma, and it'll bite you in the ass because people will hunt you down. So pay people good money, but you're getting so much more. The second type of thing that reinvests your time, real estate. And I'm not an expert on stocks. I'm not an expert on real estate, but I've gotten good at those things. And that's what's very important, is that there's an old quote that says, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the next best time to plant a tree? Now. And what means so much to me about that is you talk about harvesting, the labor, the fruits of your labor, that, a tree planted 20 years ago, you can cut that thing down and have a lot of resources for yourself. But you didn't really have to build all those resources. You didn't have to plant 100 trees yesterday and then try and get as much wood as you would from a huge tree. And that analogy is so important, is that you do one thing and it multiplies over time. Real estate, for example, my computer business, back in 2005, I bought the building that we moved into. Now, it's something where it cost me a little bit more because I could have rented a building, but instead, and we'll talk more about money in a second, but I paid a little bit more, but I have assets, and that means, positive value, something that's also of monetary or economic value to me in this building. So I'm working once, and the dollar I make, pays my wage, but it's growing the company's value, but then it's also growing this building value. So I'm working once and making money in two different spots. That's pretty awesome, because at the end of those 20 years, I don't just have one thing, I have two. I have twice as much resource, and I don't have to plant any more trees 20 years from now. The next most important thing about your time is learning. Now, you're probably looking at me going, Rob, damn it, you didn't go to college. I still am, and I'm in 2 classes this semester, and I've never felt more alive. I love learning. And the very first thing I can tell you is that if you say to me, or your first thing you're thinking is, well, Rob, I don't like learning, you don't know you do. And I'm going to tell you what, that's not your fault. And I'm not telling you to blame anybody else, but you probably haven't had a kick-ass teacher, because when you're younger than me, I'm 28, and I'm going to say, the first 30 years of your life, you're very impressionable. And if there is not a teacher to help kind of steer your emotions into the right direction, if you've got all shitty basic teachers that are just there for tenure and grading homework and getting out of and away from stupid kids, you're never going to have that experience. I got so fortunate back in high school, and my school situation is completely wild, but I had a computer science teacher. Oh, computer science, Rob, you're in computers. Huh, surprise there. Who lived and breathed computers. His passion for that rubbed off on me. And that's what's so important about learning, is find a teacher, both a teacher and a subject, both matter, that it's not learning anymore, that you would die to be in that class, that you love learning, and that the homework's fun. We were building circuits. We were hand wiring 6502 computers. Some of you may know what that is. Kind of like, think of around the original Nintendo type of technology. I hand wired one of those. My assignment was to get that done by a certain day. You'd be damn sure I got that done before then, because that was fun. Yeah, that's work to other people. That might be work to you, but you might enjoy marketing, stuff that I might not particularly enjoy, where it sounds like homework to me, but you love doing it. And that's what a good teacher should do. So always be learning. Just like your muscles, where, if you work out and then you stop working out, what happens? Your muscles atrophy. They don't stay the same. They don't keep growing. They die. And so You're either growing yourself or it's dying. There is no middle. Your body is either moving or you're decomposing. And so what's important here is, and I'm paraphrasing Tony Robbins, who he's got some cool stuff, by the way, but you don't have to buy any of that sort of thing, but either you're growing or you're dying. And those are words to live by, I guess, and then die by. But those are so important to learning. How do people like me get so much done? And I'm not talking just about the whole reinvesting time thing. I'm talking about like during the day. Well, you do speed some of your life things up. Is that relationships, family, personal, love, all that sort of things, drama? You get used to it. You get used to the fact that, yeah, every human has that. And one of the advantages that you can have is getting through that stuff quicker. And I'm not saying accomplishing or whatever the end of the relationship. I'm saying that if there's bullshit and drama in your life, get through it, get past it. You know that tomorrow there's going to be another one. You know, like, be realistic about it and don't waste time with that sort of stuff. And I love gossiping. I'm a huge fan of People Magazine. You know, Kim Kardashian. No, I'm not. But what happens is that if you dwell on that, that's what your brain's processing the whole time. You're thinking about the 72-day marriage. That's what you're thinking about. You're not thinking about solving problems. You're thinking about other people. And so I'm paraphrasing some sort of great quote where, you know, good people talk about people, great people talk about ideas. And you might think that today talking to your friend about some random bullshit, you know, isn't going to affect you. It does. Part 2, money. Something that we all focus on. I mean, I think a little too much, but we're chasing the dollar. And that's my first thing. That's my number one takeaway from money. Don't chase it. Do not. Promise me you won't. It never works that way. I can speak from example. Is that I saw other people saying, oh man, you know, internet startups, that's where they're making their big money, selling out to Google, Microsoft, all those companies. That's where the money's at. I went after that. And you know what I realized? Just because somebody else makes a lot of money in that doesn't mean that I will. Just because there is a lot of money in something doesn't mean that any of it's going to come to me. Remember this. Follow what you're good at. The money is a result. Think about it. You perform a service, somebody pays you in return. They don't pay you first and then you perform a service. Money always follows your actions. So do the things that you would do without even thinking, that it's just part of your passion, that you would do better than anybody else. And the money follows that. I'll give you a perfect example. I went around the country trying to raise money for this cool idea to build this social network, and awesome enough, Facebook has a lot of the features. You know, my team, if any of you guys watch this, we built a lot of really cool features that were there before Facebook had them. And I'm not saying they stole them or anything like that. They're just ideas that anybody with half a brain would say, hey, this is a really cool technology idea. But I had no connections to pushing that out. I had no business strategy. I don't have an MBA yet on business. There are a lot of reasons why I wasn't the right person to be leading that team. And where's that product? It got mothballed. It's done. It didn't go anywhere. And I spent more than $1 million of my own money over a course of a couple of years. And that was my Lamborghini money, by the way. That was the second time when I refer to times of spending it, where I made the mistake. As I spent it, I learned. But that was a very expensive education, which had I learned and known this, had I watched this video, I would have realized that there's some truth to that. That just because you could do it doesn't mean that you're going to A, make money, or B, be the best at it. You know, I love to look at things like, you know, I'm an entrepreneur. Yeah, I could be a bigger company than Google at the search engine game. But do you know how foolish of a goal that is? Because you're talking about trying to persuade other people. You might have a genius idea that should make you tons of money, but you now are dealing in the realm of humans, which nobody is a true expert at how everybody thinks. And if anybody says they're a human expert, look at how well their relationship with their girl's going, because I highly doubt they understand women at all, because they would have made millions publishing that book. Issue number 2 with money. Be willing to do anything, but don't be desperate. And you're thinking, that sounds like do but don't. It's a balance. When I started my company, I was both. I was willing to do anything, and I was desperate for the money, the business. And that was kind of where I made a little bit of a mistake there. Now I'm here, so take that with a grain of salt. But one of the things that slowed me down is I confused being willing to do anything to help and make money and be of service with being desperate. And a lot of examples come with that. First, you take your car to a car mechanic, and he says, you know what? I want your business. You have a nice car. I'm going to charge you next to nothing to fix this. What are you going to tell your friends? Excuse me. You're going to tell them that this guy charged me next to nothing, and they're going to expect the same thing too. Especially if he charged less than he should have, it backfires, and you're desperate. You're not letting your reputation sell you. You're letting the dollar sell you. And who wants to be in a business where their best benefit is that they're cheaper than the shitty competition? That's a bad place to be when you're just competing based on dollar, because you have to cut all of your personality. You have to cut all of the benefit of being you out. You have to give as little as possible to make sure that you can afford to give anything at all. So what's important to do is be willing to do anything, but know your worth. And if any one of you goes, well, yeah, that's how I can tell people, yo, I'm worth anything. No, you're not allowed to tell them how much you're worth. Your experience does. Your experience should say, hey, look this is the best guy for the job. He doesn't need to talk himself up, which humility is a huge issue. I'll talk about in part 3 of this. But what you've got to do is let your accolades speak for themselves. People will come knocking, and then you can sell on that. You can sell on your experience, not that you're the cheapest, and not telling people how much you're worth. Finally, the last point I want to talk about in this video, as I could keep going on for a couple hours on this stuff, but here's a nice little stopping point, is business is not done in Hail Marys. It's very easy to see that because people love to tell stories, and movies are condensed stories. Books are condensed, well, not as condensed, but punchlines are condensed stories, and they ignore a lot of the minutia, the boring stuff that makes the story real. They love the mythical, the mythos, the legend, the idea that one man against everything. No, he probably was doing his taxes while his employees were getting shit done. It's not as beautiful as movies like to make it seem. And the reason I'm telling you this is, don't be discouraged when you see how real business is. It makes sense. It's not some sort of like David and Goliath thing. And I think it was Henry Ford said that, opportunity is often disguised as hard work. I would almost say that money or success is disguised as obvious opportunity. When it feels like customers are just asking for so much and you can't fulfill all the orders, that is actual success. When it makes sense, where it's like, man, you're telling your friends or family, you're like, geez, work is crazy. I've got all these customers, they're all ordering stuff at the same time. That's when you made it. That's actually really the moment where I felt, holy crap, I'm a real business. I'm in that league. I'm the 1%. It was something where it was like, wow, I'm actually, it's real. I have to take care of these people because they're asking for more than I was trying to sell. That's success. And so don't watch movies or don't look at those things and go, oh, you know what? I'm going to invent something. I'm going to write it myself. Just throw it 100 yards and right into the end zone touchdown, and I'm going to make millions and sell out. It doesn't work that way. Do you know, as another example, most businesses that make a lot of money on acquisitions, on selling out, are companies that are very profitable and have already made it. And it's not something where you're going to be in the point where, oh my God, I'm going to create this right thing, go talk to the CEO of Google, and he'll buy it. No, it really doesn't work that way. Like YouTube. The guys that invested in Google were the same guys that invested in YouTube. So there's a lot of reason behind those mythical stories. So we'll cut into that a little bit more as well into the next video. So there we go. Couple things: time, money, and attitude on getting yourself ready for business, or really managing and leading and being an entrepreneur. So in part 3, we're going to actually cut into real business strategy, some exercises that help me, and we're talking about fun stuff, not like read chapters 2 through 5 and do all the odd problems, and we'll have an exam on Wednesday. It's none of that stuff. It's just things that make life fun and keep your mind on sharp and at the top of your game.